The road to Hollow Home curved through a forest of bare birch and maple, their limbs etched black against the grey Vermont sky. Anna Mercer gripped the steering wheel tighter as the GPS announced she had reached her destination. End of maintained road. Beyond the frost-laced windshield, the house loomed like a memory refusing to fade. It wasn't a house at all, more a relic of institutional ambition, sprawling and stern. 3 stories of stone and rotted clapboard, its gables clawed toward the clouds, the windows like blind eyes shuttered by age. A once grand sign at the gate read, "The Hollow Home for Children," though the letters had weathered into near illegibility. The estate, silent under a blanket of mist, waited for her like something half asleep but listening. Anna parked the rental and stepped out into the chill. The air smelled of wet leaves and rust. Somewhere in the distance, a crow cawed, the sound fractured, echoing off the hills. She drew her coat tighter, her boots sinking into the mud as she approached the front porch. Each step creaked beneath her weight. Inside, the air was heavy with disuse. Dust motes floated like pale ghosts in the weak daylight that slipped through cracks in the boarded windows. Her breath came out white. The house was colder than the air outside. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. She set down her duffel beside the entry table, where a tarnished brass plaque still read, Dr. Evelyn Mercer. Direct to her grandmother's name. Anna ran her fingers across the engraving, tracing the letters as if they might offer warmth. The silence pressed in, broken only by the faint groan of the timbers and the distant drip of water from somewhere unseen. The lawyer had called it a unique opportunity. The deed was hers, along with everything that decayed within. The last of the Mercer line, and perhaps the last to carry its shame. Still, she'd accepted. She told herself it was for the documentary, The Forgotten Institutions of New England, that she wanted to preserve history. But standing there in the cold hall, she realized she hadn't come just for history. She'd come for answers she wasn't ready to name. The caretaker met her an hour later, a stout woman from the nearby town, Mrs. Kettle, who handed Anna a ring of keys and a set of warnings disguised as pleasantries. "It's a hard place," Mrs. Kettle said, eyes darting toward the upper windows. "Lot of stories about what went on here. Some say the children never left. Best keep to the main floor at night. Old houses make their own noises, you see." Anna nodded politely, masking her discomfort behind professional detachment. "I'm used to old buildings. They creak, they settle." Mrs. Kettle gave a humorless smile. "This one remembers. When she left, Anna explored alone. The west corridor's wallpaper peeled in curling strips, revealing faint drawings beneath. Childish sketches of stick figures, animals, suns with too many rays." Her breath caught. The images were drawn directly onto the plaster, hidden under decades of paint. She took a photo for her records, her hand trembling slightly. The main parlor was a cavern of faded grandeur, velvet curtains eaten by moths, furniture shrouded in sheets. On the mantel sat a row of framed photographs, staff and children posing stiffly before the building, smiles brittle and staged. At the center stood her grandmother, Dr. Evelyn Mercer, elegant even in grayscale. Anna stared at that face, confident, severe, eyes bright with purpose. The same eyes she saw in her own reflection every morning. As dusk fell, she unpacked her camera equipment, recording the house in sweeping, silent shots. The wind rose outside, sighing through the boarded slats like a voice trying to form words. In the cellar she found the sealed door, iron hinges half swallowed by concrete, an uneven patch across the stone. The air smelled of mildew and faintly of iron. Someone had gone to great lengths to make sure it never opened again. She ran the camera over it, whispering her narration into the mic. Basement door sealed with poured concrete. No visible access. Possibly structural reinforcement from the 1950s. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. It wasn't reinforcement. It was concealment. When she returned upstairs, night had fallen fully and the house seemed to stretch around her. The halls longer, the rooms deeper. She lit a single lantern and sat at the dining table with her notebook, writing field notes by hand. The silence was absolute, until it wasn't. Somewhere above her, faintly through the ceiling, came the sound of laughter. Children's laughter. Light, fleeting, echoing down the stairwell. Anna froze. The lantern flame flickered. She waited, holding her breath. The sound faded into nothing. The rational part of her mind, the historian, the researcher, whispered that it was just the wind or the house settling. But another part, the one that had grown up with whispered family stories, knew better. She rose slowly and looked toward the staircase. The air there shimmered faintly, as if holding its breath too. Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. Hello? No answer. Only the faint rhythmic tick of the hall clock, a heartbeat in the stillness. Anna exhaled and forced a shaky smile, closing her notebook. Tomorrow, she muttered to herself. I'll start tomorrow. But upstairs, in the darkness beyond the boarded windows, something else had already begun. Morning light filtered through the cracks in the boarded windows, striping the walls in pale gold and grey. Anna woke to the smell of dust and old wood, her camera still on the nightstand beside her. The memory of the laughter lingered, faint like an echo from a dream. She replayed it in her mind until she convinced herself it hadn't happened. The house was quiet now. Too quiet. After coffee brewed on a portable stove, she set up her workspace in what used to be the director's office. The mahogany desk, though warped, still bore the faint outlines of where ledgers and pens once rested. She dusted off a brass nameplate reading Dr. Evelyn Mercer and placed it carefully in front of her camera. This is day 1 of restoration at the Hollow Home for Children, she narrated softly. Objective, to document artifacts and reconstruct a timeline of operations between 1932 and 1940. Her voice sounded clinical, detached, but her pulse quickened as she panned the lens across the shelves. Every drawer was filled with papers so brittle they crumbled at her touch. She opened one cabinet and froze. Inside were reels, dozens of them labeled in fading typewriter ink, Behavioral Reform Program, 1934. She hesitated before pulling one out. The canister was cold to the touch, the metal slightly dented. Upstairs, she found an old projector stored beneath a sheet, its bulb cracked but its mechanism intact. She spent the next few hours cleaning it, splicing frayed film, and covering the windows with cloth to block the light. When the reel finally rolled to life, it filled the parlor wall with flickering grey shapes. But she couldn't, Anna whispered. She tried, Maggie said, her voice cracking. At first she followed the orders. They all did. But when she saw the children failing, when the tests turned to screams, she tried to stop it. She went to Greaves, begged him to end it. That's when the accidents began. Accidents? Maggie's teacup rattled as she set it down. One of the boys died during a sound isolation experiment. They said his heart gave out. Evelyn locked herself in her office for 2 days after that. When she came out, she was different, pale, quiet. She said she'd handle it. And then the files started to disappear. Anna felt her pulse pounding in her ears. The missing children. Maggie nodded. She buried the records. I helped her. We sealed that wing ourselves, poured the concrete with our own hands. She said no one should ever open it again. Anna swallowed hard. And Lydia? Her sister. For the first time, Maggie's composure cracked. She gripped the tablecloth until her knuckles whitened. Lydia wasn't supposed to be part of it. She came to visit, and Greaves saw an opportunity, said it would demonstrate trust. Evelyn fought him, but he threatened to shut the home down. The tests began that same week. Lydia changed. She forgot her name. Evelyn said she could still hear her humming at night through the vents. Anna felt tears sting her eyes. So Evelyn kept working for him even after that? She thought she could save what was left, Maggie whispered. But she couldn't save Lydia. None of us could. The room grew still. The old clock ticked faintly, the sound steady and sad. Finally, Anna spoke. You knew this would come out eventually. Maggie looked at her with a haunted expression. I prayed it wouldn't. Some truths don't set you free, child. They chain you tighter. Anna reached for her recorder to shut it off, but Maggie's frail hand caught her wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "They still watch that place," she said. "The government, the Foundation, whatever they call themselves now. Don't think you're the first to look. The others who tried—" "Others?" Anna asked. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. "They didn't make it out. You should leave it buried." Before Anna could answer, a sound came from outside. A car engine starting, then a soft pop like a backfire. Maggie flinched. "You need to go," she whispered. "Now." Anna grabbed her coat, heart racing. As she reached the door, Maggie's voice trembled behind her. "Tell the truth if you can. For those of us who couldn't." That night, back at the Hollow home, Anna sat on the floor of the parlor, staring at her recorder. The tape of Maggie's confession played in looping fragments. Halfway through, the audio cut sharply, replaced by the crackle of static. Then faintly through the noise came another voice. "Anna, come home." The same voice that had whispered her name before. She stared at the recorder as smoke began to rise from its vents. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed faintly. The next morning, the news would say that Margaret Sloane's house burned down in her sleep. Anna knew better. The fire took Maggie's house before dawn. Anna watched the news report on her laptop in the dim kitchen light, the glow painting her face in cold blue. "Electrical malfunction," the headline read. "No foul play suspected." But Anna knew better. She shut the computer and whispered into the empty room. They silenced her. Outside, the October morning was brittle and still. Smoke from the burned cottage drifted faintly through the valley. The Hollow home loomed behind her, its windows dark, watching. Caleb arrived not long after, his eyes rimmed red, his expression heavy. "You saw it?" he asked. She nodded. "They killed her," he didn't argue. "Then we're next if we keep digging." Anna stared toward the manor. "Then we dig faster." The basement air was colder that morning, sharp enough to sting their throats. The sealed wing gaped open like a wound. They descended through it, past the rows of metal beds and forgotten files, to the far end where a cracked tile floor sloped downward. Beneath a loose drain grate, they found a narrow metal hatch sealed with a corroded padlock. Caleb pried it open with a crowbar. A smell like mildew and rusted machinery seeped up from the dark below. "Someone built this under the main foundation," he muttered, lowering his flashlight. "It's not on any blueprint." Anna followed him down a short stairwell that ended in a steel door. The hinges protested when they forced it open. Inside lay a chamber unlike the rest of the house, newer, cleaner, its concrete walls lined with decaying insulation and old electrical conduit. The beam of Anna's flashlight swept across the room. Tables covered in cracked instruments filled the space. Scalpels, electrodes, glass syringes clouded with residue. A rusted control panel occupied one corner, its dials labeled Auditory Stimulus and Sensory Deprivation Unit. "This wasn't medicine," Caleb said quietly. "It was control." Anna approached a file cabinet beside the panel. Inside were blueprints stamped property of the U.S. Bureau of Behavioral Research, 1935. In the corner, the signature, R. Greaves. Her pulse pounded. He was real. Agent Robert Greaves. He wasn't just some name in Evelyn's notes. Caleb scanned the room uneasily. "Looks like the government funded all this. And your grandmother ran it." Anna shook her head, voice trembling. "She didn't run it. She tried to stop it." But the conviction in her words faltered as she turned and saw the next room through a cracked observation window. Behind the glass lay a small padded cell, barely large enough for a child. The walls were scrawled with chalk drawings, stick figures, sons, and names written over and over again. Lydia, Lydia, Lydia. Anna pressed a hand to the glass. "She was here," she whispered. "She never left." A faint hum filled the air, like an electrical current waking after long sleep. Caleb stepped back, flashlight darting around the room. "Did you hear that?" The old reel-to-reel player on the desk flickered to life. Its spools turned slowly, dragging a hiss of static into the air. Anna's heart slammed against her ribs as a voice emerged, thin, warped, and trembling. "My mother kept records," he said. Stories from folks who remembered the home before it shut down. She said some nights you could hear the children singing through the fields. Anna forced a faint smile. Maybe they weren't ghosts. Maybe it was just echoes of whatever was done here. Does it matter? Caleb said. Echoes still hurt. Together they went back to the sealed wing. The light from the broken windows filtered in weakly, and the smell of rust and dust clung to the air. Anna's flashlight beam glinted off a row of reel-to-reel tapes in a cabinet near the observation window. Each was labeled with patient numbers. She found one marked number 7, LM. Her fingers trembled as she set it on the player. The reel stuttered, hissed, then steadied. A man's voice came through first, clipped, bureaucratic. Agent Robert Greaves, Behavioral Rehabilitation Initiative. Progress report, June 1936. Subject 7 continues to demonstrate resistance. Positive results in isolation response. Ethical sacrifices acknowledged. Anna's throat tightened. Another voice followed, faint female wavering. She doesn't know her name anymore. Calls herself Little Lydia. Maintain the schedule, Greaves replied. Erase what remains. The reel clicked and ended. Anna stared at the machine as if it might come alive again. Erase what remains, she murmured. He was talking about her memory. Caleb rubbed his jaw. So they weren't curing anything. They were trying to erase who the kids were. She nodded, her voice unsteady. And Evelyn helped them, until she couldn't. They searched deeper into the room. Behind the observation glass, they found a metal locker half hidden by debris. Inside, more files, and a single framed photograph wrapped in linen. It showed Evelyn Mercer standing beside a little girl with pale hair. Both were smiling, though the child's eyes looked hollow. On the back, a note in Evelyn's hand read, "For the report, L. Mercer, progress improving." Anna's stomach churned. She pressed the photo to her chest, feeling its chill seep into her skin. She experimented on her own sister, she whispered. Caleb stepped closer, his tone softening. Maybe she didn't have a choice. She always had a choice, Anna snapped, then immediately regretted the edge in her voice. She sank onto a nearby cot, the springs creaking beneath her. Sorry, I thought she was different. She probably thought so too, Caleb said quietly. Till she wasn't. The air grew colder. Anna's flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied. From the corner of the room came a faint sound, a tapping, rhythmic and deliberate. They turned toward the noise. On the far wall, where the plaster had cracked, words were faintly etched into the paint, letters scratched by a small, uncertain-handed LM, remember. Anna reached out, brushing the dust away, and the letters seemed to brighten under her touch. She wanted someone to find her, Anna whispered. Caleb swallowed hard. And now you have. That night, back in her room, Anna played the tape again, listening to Greaves's detached tone and the faint sobbing underneath. When the reel ended, there was silence, and then softly another sound, a whisper almost lost beneath the static. Anna, her name, spoken by a child's voice that trembled like a breath in winter. She stared at the recorder, frozen. Then, faintly, the old floorboards creaked overhead. Someone, or something, was moving in the sealed wing. The next morning, fog blanketed the hills so thickly that the world seemed erased beyond the front porch. The hollow home stood half-vanished in it, its upper windows swallowed by pale mist. Anna sat in her car at the end of the gravel drive, gripping the steering wheel. Evelyn's journal and the L. Mercer file on the seat beside her. She needed answers that the dead couldn't give. The town of Alders Hollow lay 6 miles south. A cluster of sagging colonial houses, a general store, and a diner that still smelled of bacon grease from the 1950s. When Anna parked outside, the locals watched her through the diner's windows. She recognized their looks now, suspicion tinted with superstition. Inside, the waitress, an elderly woman with a braid of silver hair, hesitated before speaking. "You're the Mercer girl, aren't you?" Anna forced a polite smile. "Yes, I'm staying at the Hollow home. I'm making a documentary." The woman's expression flickered, pity mixed with something else. "You'll want to talk to Maggie Sloan," she said finally. She's the only one still alive who worked there. Margaret Sloane lived in a weathered cottage at the edge of town, its porch lined with bird feeders and dying chrysanthemums. Anna hesitated before knocking. The door opened slowly and a small, stooped woman appeared. White hair pinned neatly, eyes clouded but sharp. "Mrs. Sloane?" Anna asked. Maggie nodded faintly. "You've got your grandmother's face," she murmured. "Didn't think I'd ever see those eyes again." Anna's voice faltered. I came to ask about the Hollow Home, about what really happened." For a moment silence stretched between them. Then Maggie stepped aside. "Come in before the cold takes you." Inside, the air smelled of cedar and tea. The living room was cluttered with old photographs and lace curtains that trembled in the wind. Maggie poured tea with trembling hands, her every motion deliberate, like someone long used to living carefully. "You were Evelyn Mercer's nurse," Anna began, trying to keep her tone neutral. "You worked there during the 30s? "I did," Maggie said softly. "Though I wish I hadn't." Anna set the recorder on the table. "Can you tell me what really went on in that place?" Maggie's gaze drifted toward the window, where fog pressed against the glass. "We were told it was for the good of the children. Rehabilitation, they called it. Teaching order to chaos. But what they meant was obedience. We took in those no one wanted. Orphans, runaways, the poor. The government sent them under a program called the Rehabilitation Initiative." Anna leaned forward. "Federal government?" "Yes," Maggie nodded slowly. "A man named Greaves ran it. Said the Depression had ruined too many minds. He believed behavior could be rewritten like words on paper. Your grandmother..." She stopped, her lips tightening. "She was brilliant. Too brilliant. Thought she could fix what was broken in those children." At the far end of the wing stood a door marked Director's Records. Anna pushed it open. The hinges shrieked. Inside, a small desk faced a wall lined with glass observation windows. Beyond the glass lay another room, padded and silent. A recording device sat on the desk beside a leather-bound book. The cover read, "Dr. Evelyn Mercer, Personal Journal." Volerni Anna's breath caught. She brushed the dust away, her fingers trembling. "It's hers," she said. "My grandmother's," Caleb frowned. "You sure you want to read that?" "I need to." She opened it carefully. The handwriting was neat at first, crisp, confident. March 12, 1934. The children respond well to structure. Some show remarkable compliance after prolonged sessions. But the new directive troubles me. They ask for isolation experiments, prolonged sensory deprivation. I fear what it might do to them." She flipped ahead. The writing grew hurried, the ink blotted. June 9, 1935, Subject 12, stopped speaking. "They call it success. I call it erasure." Caleb watched her face pale as she turned the pages. August 22nd, Lydia begged me to stop. Said she could hear them crying at night even when the halls were silent. I told her not to listen, but I hear them too now. In the vents, in the pipes. Anna closed the journal. The weight of it felt unbearable. Her grandmother hadn't just led the experiments. She'd recorded the unraveling of her own mind. Caleb paced, restless. "You see, it's all here. What they did, what she did. She tried to stop it," Anna argued weakly, though the words rang hollow. He turned, eyes flashing. "You think writing it down makes it right? My grandfather was one of those kids. You think her guilt brings him back?" His anger struck like a blade, clean, righteous, deserved. Anna had no answer. She could only stand there, the echo of discharged repeating in her mind. Caleb slammed a fist against the wall and stormed toward the breach. "You dig up ghosts, Mercer. You better be ready to face them." The sound of his footsteps faded. Leaving Anna alone with the hum of the old building, she sat at the desk, her camera still running, recording her whispered thoughts. If anyone finds this, the records exist. The truth exists. Evelyn Mercer wasn't who she claimed to be. A soft click interrupted her. The recorder on the desk sputtered to life. She hadn't touched it. The reels spun slowly, creaking with age. A voice crackled through the static, faint, distant, familiar. "Please remain calm, children. The test will begin shortly." The voice was unmistakable. Her grandmother's. Then another voice, smaller, trembling. "It hurts." "No!" Evelyn's voice replied sharply. It helps. The tape dissolved into shrieking feedback. Anna tore the cord from the wall, her heart hammering. Silence fell again, but it wasn't the same silence. The air felt watchful, aware. On the far wall, one of the observation mirrors shivered, though no wind blew. For an instant, she thought she saw movement behind it. A pale shape, small, child-sized, tilting its head toward her. Anna stumbled back, the flashlight trembling in her grip. The reflection steadied. Only her own face stared back. She forced herself to speak, to anchor her fear. "End of entry," she whispered into the camera. Then from somewhere behind the glass came the soft scrape of fingernails against metal. Long, slow, deliberate, she fled the sealed wing. The journal clutched to her chest, leaving the recorder spinning in the dark, and in that dark, beneath the static, a child's voice began to hum a lullaby that no one living should remember. Anna didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house seemed amplified, every shadow lengthened into something conscious. The journal lay open on the nightstand beside her. Evelyn Mercer's words burned into her mind. "Lydia begged me to stop." The next morning dawned bleak and colorless. A thin fog draped the fields, softening the edges of everything. Anna sat at the kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee, her laptop humming beside her. The files she'd scanned from the sealed wing filled the screen. Hundreds of names, numbers, and clinical phrases. Non-compliant, regressive, reformed. Each entry was like a gravestone. Halfway down the list, she froze. Subject number 7, L. Mercer, age 10. Diagnosis: emotional instability, resistance to auditory conditioning. Status: terminated from program, June 1936. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Her breath hitched. Mercer wasn't an uncommon name, but here it was too close, too personal. Evelyn's maiden name had been Mercer before she married Anna's grandfather. Anna scrolled through the digital scan, searching for anything more. Attached was a photograph, a girl with pale hair and solemn eyes, staring at the camera as though she already knew what was coming. On the back, in fading ink, a single line read, "Test subject number 7, L. Mercer." Anna traced the letters on her screen, her pulse racing. Lydia, her grandmother's sister, the one Evelyn had written about. She felt the air in the room shift, that subtle pressure that always came before something unexplainable. Her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. "It was Caleb. You still down there?" he asked, his voice rough from lack of sleep. "I've been looking through the files," she said. "I found a child with the same last name as my grandmother, L. Mercer. I think it was her sister." There was a pause on the line. "Then this wasn't just some job for your family, was it?" "No," Anna whispered. "It was personal," Caleb sighed heavily. "You shouldn't go through this alone. I'll come by." When he arrived, the tension between them had cooled to something quieter, a shared weariness. He brought with him 2 mugs of coffee and an old notebook, worn from years of handling. At first, the image was simple. A group of children seated in neat rows, facing the camera. They looked dazed, their hands folded on their laps. Then Evelyn Mercer appeared, younger but unmistakable, her voice steady as she addressed unseen staff. "These children have been chosen for their potential. Through structure, discipline, and guided behavioral reform, we can teach them to be productive citizens, to cure the tendencies that lead to weakness," the film crackled. The children's faces blurred in the light. "Our methods may seem unconventional," Evelyn continued, "but the results speak for themselves." A faint whimper rose from one of the children near the front. Then static engulfed the screen. The reel jammed, smoke curling from the projector lamp. Anna shut it off and sat in silence. The house seemed to absorb the sound of her breathing, the floorboards creaking as if in answer. That afternoon, she called the local handyman the lawyer had recommended, Caleb Dwyer. He arrived in a dented pickup, his boots caked with mud, his expression wary. "You're the Mercer girl," he said flatly when she met him on the porch. "Woman," she corrected, offering a hand. "Anna Mercer." He didn't take it. Didn't think anyone from that family would come back here. She managed a tight smile. I'm not really from here. Just trying to make sense of what's left. Caleb's gaze swept the facade. Some things are better left buried. She ignored the warning and led him inside. As he replaced a few blown fuses and tested wiring, his flashlight beam played over the walls, lingering on the faint children's drawings beneath the peeling wallpaper. His face tightened. My grandfather worked here, he said finally. Or at least that's what they told us. He was one of the kids. Disappeared in 36. Anna turned sharply. You mean he was one of the patients? Subjects, Caleb corrected. That's what the story said. I've seen the lists. 26 names. None of them ever came home. The silence between them deepened, heavy as dust. When they reached the basement, the smell of damp concrete and rust thickened. Anna shined her flashlight along the far wall, where the sealed door stood, grey, uneven, like a wound that never healed. Structural reinforcement. Caleb asked, running his hand over the cement. That's what I thought, Anna said. But now I'm not so sure. He knocked against the wall. The sound was hollow. They exchanged a glance, a silent agreement forged by curiosity and unease. Caleb grabbed a chisel from his belt, pried at the edge, and a sliver of concrete cracked loose. A faint draft escaped, cold as breath. Jesus, he muttered. There's air moving behind it. Anna filmed everything, her hands trembling slightly. The camera captured dust swirling like ash in the beam of their lights. They stopped after the first small break, a jagged gap revealing darkness beyond. Leave it for now, Caleb said. You don't want to open that tonight. Anna wanted to argue, but something in his tone, that quiet, lived-in fear, made her pause. She nodded, sealing the equipment back into its case. Later, as she reviewed the footage in her room, the house groaned under the weight of the wind. The cracked segment of wall appeared on screen, a black slit, almost pulsing in the dim light. As the playback continued, she caught something she hadn't heard before. Between Caleb's hammer strikes, faint and distorted, a child's voice whispered from the tape. It wasn't laughter this time. It was a single word, spoken low and pleading. Help! Anna froze the frame. Her reflection stared back at her from the laptop screen, pale and wide-eyed. She replayed the clip again, turning up the volume. The same whisper. The same impossible plea. The wind outside rose into a mournful howl. Downstairs a door creaked open, slow, deliberate. Anna's pulse quickened. She reached for her flashlight. The batteries were dead, and in the silence that followed, she could swear she heard the film projector start to hum again. Even though she had unplugged it hours ago, by morning the storm had passed, leaving a mist that clung to the eaves of the hollow home, like breath on glass. Anna barely slept. The projector's phantom hum haunted her until dawn, though when she checked it, the plug remained coiled and cold. No sign it had ever run. Caleb arrived early, his boots tracking mud across the porch. Couldn't shake it off, he said simply. Needed to see what's behind that wall. Anna didn't argue. Whatever had whispered help through her camera, it wasn't wind or wishful thinking. She felt it, the gravity of something waiting to be found. They gathered tools, a crowbar, sledgehammer, flashlight and camera. Anna documented every moment. The camera's red light blinked steadily as Caleb swung. Each hit echoed through the basement, shaking dust from the rafters like ash. The wall resisted at first, as if unwilling to surrender its secret. Then, with a crack that sounded too much like a sigh, the cement fractured. A jagged gap widened until the beam of Caleb's flashlight pierced through. Jesus, he breathed. There's a whole corridor back there. Anna leaned in. Through the opening she saw tiled floors, streaked with rust and something darker. Metal beds lined the walls, their straps still intact. Everything was preserved, untouched by time. Sterile, orderly, wrong. They widened the hole enough to crawl through. The air inside was different, thin, dry, heavy, with the faint sweetness of decay. Anna's camera light swept over charts pinned to walls. Clipboards still hanging, as if the nurses might return any moment. On one bed lay a cracked porcelain doll with a missing eye. Caleb muttered, "It's like they just left." Anna found the filing cabinet first. The drawers opened stiffly, filled with yellowing folders stamped non-compliant subjects. Inside, names, ages, psychological notes, and symbols she didn't recognize. Triangles, circles, spirals. Each file ended the same way. A red stamp reading, "Discharged." "Discharged?" she whispered. "But none of them ever came home," Caleb finished, his voice low. Field. Subject LM continues vocal mimicry. Voices of other children recorded for playback. The voice was unmistakably Evelyn's. "Please," another voice whimpered, high and childlike. "No more quiet. You must listen," Evelyn's voice replied. "Listen and learn. It's the only way to bring you back." Anna's flashlight flickered, plunging the room into brief darkness. When it came back, Caleb stood frozen, staring at the wall. "There's something written here." Anna turned her light where he pointed. Across the concrete, in faint white chalk, was a message, "Stop the sound. They live in it." A chill climbed her spine. "It's her handwriting," she whispered. "Evelyn's." The real word again, faster now, voices overlapping, dozens of them, crying. Laughter, distorted hum that seemed to vibrate through the floor. The metal tables rattled. Dust drifted from the ceiling. "Kill it," Caleb shouted, yanking the cord from the wall. The reels kept spinning. The hum deepened, resonating through the concrete. Anna staggered, her vision swimming. For a split second she thought she saw shapes forming in the sound, outlines of small bodies flickering in the air, faces pale and hollow-eyed. She stumbled back, clutching the edge of a table. "They're here," she gasped. They never left. Then through the chaos of sound came a final clear voice, Evelyn's, calm but pleading. "Anna, forgive me." The power cut abruptly. Silence crashed down like a curtain. They stood in darkness, both breathing hard. The reel hung limp, smoke curling from its motor. Caleb broke the quiet first. "We need to leave this place." Anna shook her head. "Not yet. There's more." She was trying to send a message. He grabbed her shoulder. "She's dead, Anna. Whatever's down here isn't her." Anna met his eyes, pale, determined, haunted. "Then I'll find out what it is." They climbed the stairs back to the surface. Behind them, deep in the lab, the old speakers crackled once more, faint, rhythmic, like a child tapping on glass. When they reached the main hall, the air above ground felt colder than before. Anna turned off her flashlight and looked toward the parlor where the first projector still sat. "I think I know what she was doing," she murmured. Caleb frowned. "What?" "She wasn't trying to torture them," Anna said softly. "She was trying to keep their voices alive." Her gaze drifted toward the ceiling, where faint static still hummed through the walls, the last heartbeat of the hollow home, whispering through the wires. Somewhere inside that hum, the children still waited to be heard. 3 days passed without sunlight. Low clouds dragged over the valley like smoke, and the hollow home seemed to sink deeper into the earth, its grey silhouette dissolving into mist. Anna barely left her workspace. She lived between the basement and the parlor, surrounded by reels, journals, and fragments of Evelyn's guilt. Caleb stayed close, fixing what he could. Doors, lights, even the generator, though neither of them spoke much. Silence had become a language of its own. On the 4th morning, the mail arrived. A small, unmarked box sat on the porch, dry despite the rain. No return address, no postage, only her name, written in precise block letters, A. Mercer. Caleb eyed it warily. "You expecting something?" She shook her head. "I didn't order anything." The box was old, the cardboard softened by age. Inside, under a layer of wax paper, was a bundle of letters tied with a red cord. The envelopes were yellowed, the ink browned. Each bore the same sender name, stamped neatly across the top. R. Greaves. Anna's breath caught. "It's him." Caleb frowned. "From the agent?" She nodded, untangling the cord. The first envelope was dated April 9th. The paper was brittle, the handwriting meticulous. She read aloud, To Director Mercer, Phase 2 yielded satisfactory results. Phase 3 will begin shortly, cognitive erasure via sustained auditory immersion. Subject LM demonstrates unusual resilience. Her emotional attachment to you may interfere with progress. You are instructed to maintain distance. Should the conditioning fail, termination is authorized. Agent Robert Greaves, Anna's voice wavered on the last line. She dropped the letter onto the table, her hands trembling. Termination authorized, she repeated softly. Caleb leaned forward, jaw tight. They were going to kill her. Lydia. Anna rifled through the remaining envelopes. Each one told the same story in detached bureaucratic prose. Progress reports, funding requests, psychological assessments, written with the cold efficiency of a ledger. But the last letter was different. The handwriting was uneven, as if written in haste. To whom it may concern, the project cannot continue. The Mercer woman has destroyed the recordings. Subject LM is missing. I fear what she's done. This must never be discovered. The Bureau will deny its involvement. Destroy all materials. Greaves, July 1937. Anna stared at the final line until her vision blurred. He was scared of her, she said, of Evelyn. Caleb nodded slowly. Maybe she turned on him. She gathered the letters, spreading them across the table beside the blueprints they'd found in the lab. The puzzle was finally taking shape. It wasn't just some isolated experiment, she murmured. It was a federal program. Behavioral conditioning during the Depression, and Evelyn was their lead scientist, until she realized what it was doing to the kids. Caleb crossed his arms, so she tried to stop it, and buried everything. They spent hours comparing the letters to the files. Names matched, dates aligned. Funding transfers led back to the same federal departments that later became Psychological Research Division. When the daylight began to fade, Anna noticed something strange. The last page of Greaves's final letter had faint writing on the reverse side, as though another note had bled through the paper. She held it under a lamp. The words appeared in smudged pencil. Lydia relocated. State Asylum Zhao. Her pulse quickened. She wasn't killed. They moved her. Caleb leaned over her shoulder. Where's that asylum? Anna searched the name online. Closed in 1951. The building was condemned. She scrolled further. But there's a reference here. It says remaining patients transferred under Mercer family supervision. Caleb straightened. Supervision? You mean she brought Lydia back here? Anna said, her voice barely audible. After the asylum closed, the wind rattled the boarded windows, and somewhere deep in the house, a door creaked. Neither of them moved. Caleb exhaled slowly. If she brought her back, where did she keep her? Anna's gaze drifted upward, toward the ceiling, the third floor where she'd never gone. They climbed the stairs together, flashlights cutting through the gloom. The air grew colder with each step. The upper floor smelled of old linen and mold, of time sealed away. At the end of the corridor stood a locked door, its frame reinforced with an iron latch. A faded sign above it read, Private Director's Quarters. Caleb braced his shoulder against the frame and forced it open. The hinges shrieked like an animal. The room inside was immaculate, not ruined like the rest of the house. Dust lay evenly across every surface, as though untouched for decades. In the center stood a narrow hospital bed, the sheets still tucked tight. Restraint straps dangled loosely at its sides. Beside the bed, a nightstand held a cracked glass of water and a stack of folded letters, each signed with the initials LM Anna. Anna approached slowly, her flashlight trembling. She picked up one of the letters. The handwriting was uneven. Childish. Dear Evie, you said the noise will stop soon. I try to be good. I try to listen. Please make the walls quiet. Tears welled in Anna's eyes. She was writing to her sister. Caleb whispered, this room was her cage. On the far wall hung a small reel player. Its switch had rusted in the on position. Anna reached out, almost against her will, and turned it. The reel spun. A voice crackled through the static, high, sing-song, eerily familiar. "Evie, Evie, the children are crying again. Should I make them stop?" Anna dropped the flashlight. The beam rolled across the floor, illuminating a scroll etched into the wall behind the bed. "Remember me." The voice on the reel giggled softly, then whispered, clear as breath against her ear, "Anna." The power in the house flickered once, and died. Darkness swallowed the room whole. Darkness poured through the room like ink. Anna's breath hitched as her flashlight flickered, the beam trembling across peeling wallpaper and the narrow hospital bed. The reel player had stopped, the last whisper of her name still echoing in her skull. Caleb lit a match, its small flame swaying between them. "We need light," he muttered. He found a lantern on the dresser, and after a few tries, it sputtered to life, casting the room in trembling amber. The shadows seemed to shift with the flame, bending toward the bed. Anna stood frozen before the scrawled message on the wall. "Remember me." She forced herself to whisper. "Lydia." The name hung heavy in the air, almost forbidden. Caleb studied the room, the meticulous order, the stacked letters, the restraint straps. "She lived here," he said. "For years, maybe." Evelyn kept her hidden. Anna moved to the nightstand. Beneath the childish letters lay a small wooden box, carved with initials, LM. She opened it. Inside were scraps of paper, covered in uneven writing, each line a repetition of the same plea. "I want to go outside. I was good today. Make the voices stop." Her throat tightened. "She never recovered," she said softly. "Whatever they did to her, it broke her mind." Caleb's expression softened. "Maybe your grandmother tried to care for her. After everything." Anna shook her head. This wasn't care. This was containment. The air shifted again, a faint vibration through the floorboards, like a faraway hum. The same sound they'd heard in the basement lab. Caleb turned toward the hallway. "The generator's off." "What the hell is that noise?" "It's coming from below," Anna said, her voice low. "From the wires." They followed the hum through the dark corridors to a narrow attic stairwell concealed behind a wardrobe. The steps groaned beneath their feet. At the top was a small locked door. The hum was louder here, vibrating through the walls like a pulse. Anna pressed her ear against the wood. Beneath the mechanical drone, she thought she heard breathing, slow, uneven. Caleb broke the lock with one strike. The door swung open. Inside was a cramped attic chamber, lined with soundproofing foam. A single hospital bed sat beneath the window, its mattress sunken from long use. Beside it stood an old tape recorder, surrounded by a nest of cables and speakers. Anna's flashlight beam caught the glint of a nameplate taped to the recorder. Subject, LM. Maintenance log 9. "She brought the experiments up here," Anna whispered. After the asylum closed, the recorder clicked on by itself. Static hissed. Then Evelyn's voice filled the air. Older now, weary, frayed. She remembers fragments, voices, songs. "Sometimes she calls for me. I tell her it's over, but she keeps asking when the next test begins. I cannot leave her. Not again." Caleb swallowed hard. She kept her sister alive to what? Atone? Anna's voice trembled. "No. To study her. To prove she could undo what she did." The static deepened, and another voice joined in, high, trembling, childlike. "Evie, I can hear them in the walls. The children are still singing." "No, Lydia," Evelyn's voice said gently. "They're not real. They're echoes." "Then why do they call my name?" The tape snapped. The machine began to rewind itself, spinning faster and faster until the reel screamed. "Turn it off," Caleb shouted, slamming his hand against the switch. The recorder stopped, but the sound didn't. The walls vibrated, faint whispers bleeding from every speaker, every wire, until the entire attic seemed to breathe. Anna's lantern flickered violently. She turned in a slow circle, whispering, "Lydia." From the corner of the room came a low, melodic hum, the same tune she'd heard before in the basement recordings. The sound of a child humming a lullaby. Caleb stepped toward the noise. "There's something under the bed." Anna crouched beside him and lifted the sheet. Beneath the frame was a bundle of rags and a stack of notebooks, wrapped in twine. The first was labeled "The Hollow Home, Continuation Journal, 1952. Anna opened it, scanning the pages. Evelyn's handwriting filled every line, frantic, fragmented. The tests resumed, not for data, but for connection. Lydia responds to the voices. She imitates them perfectly. She is all of them now. The others, 26, speak through her, their patterns preserved in her mind. The experiment never ended. Anna's stomach lurched. She wasn't just hearing the children, she was becoming them. Caleb's face paled. So the voices, the laughter, they weren't ghosts. "No," Anna whispered. "They were Lydia." The hum faded into silence. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, from behind them, a floorboard creaked. Anna turned sharply, lantern trembling in her grip. The bed was empty, but the letters, scattered across it, began to stir, shifting in an unseen breeze. One sheet lifted into the air, gliding toward her like a slow, deliberate gesture. Caleb stepped back. "Anna." She caught the paper before it fell. Scrawled in the same uneven hand were 3 words. She remembered enough. The lantern flame dimmed, sputtering to blue. Somewhere in the wiring above them, a faint voice whispered, soft, childish and furious. "You left me here." The walls shuddered. The recorder burst to life one final time, playing overlapping voices, children laughing, crying, whispering her name again and again. Anna dropped the notebook. "Lydia, please." The laughter stopped. A single voice, small and hollow, replied, "You're not finished yet." The lantern went out. They stood in perfect blackness, the air vibrating with silence. And for the first time since she'd entered the hollow home, Anna felt the line between history and haunting collapse completely. Whatever lived in these walls was no longer memory. It was alive, and it knew her name. The following night refused to end. Rain hammered the hollow home with relentless precision, beating against the boarded windows like fists. Lighting flickered across the sky, each flash illuminating the manor's warped corridors for a heartbeat before sinking back into darkness. Anna and Caleb sat in the kitchen surrounded by Evelyn's journals, the letters from Greaves, and Lydia's fragmented notes. The air smelled of dust, wet wood, and something faintly metallic, the scent of storm and decay. Neither of them had spoken for hours. Finally, Caleb said, "You heard her voice. You know she's here." Anna rubbed her temples. "She's not here. Not exactly. It's not her ghost. It's the recordings, the wires, the experiments. They left something behind that's still alive in the house." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Alive, dead, whatever it is, it's not letting go." She looked toward the staircase. "Then I'll make it." They descended again into the basement, lanterns swinging, shadows stretching like cracks through the air. The hum they'd heard in the attic was louder now, pulsing through the pipes and walls, resonating in a low, rhythmic tone that made the floor vibrate beneath their boots. In the lab, the old equipment had awakened. Red lights blinked faintly on the control panels, though the generator was off. The real machine, charred and broken from before, now spun silently. "Something's powering this," Caleb muttered. "But it's not electricity from this century." Anna's flashlight caught a length of thick cable snaking from the machine into a vent in the far wall. "That leads to the main wing," she said. "To Evelyn's office." They followed the cable through the passageways, their steps echoing. Every hallway seemed longer than before, every corner wrong, as though the house itself were rearranging. When they reached the office, the air was colder, the breath between walls. The cable disappeared beneath the floorboards and re-emerged at a small terminal near Evelyn's old desk. A faint green light blinked steadily on its panel. Anna crouched beside it, brushing off dust. The casing wasn't old. It was new. Caleb, she said quietly, this was installed recently. He leaned closer. That's not 1930s hardware. Someone's been here. Before either could react, the desk monitor flickered to life, a glowing rectangle of pale green light. Lines of text scrolled across the screen, booting a system labeled Mercer Project, Archive Restoration Interfaces. A video window opened automatically. The grainy footage showed the same room, the same desk, but filmed from a high angle, as if from a hidden camera. A figure in a dark coat stood in front of it. Anna froze. That's not Evelyn, Caleb said. Too tall, too modern. The figure turned toward the camera, revealing a featureless mask and a flash of a government ID badge. The screen glitched, then a distorted voice filled the room. Unauthorized access detected. Property of the Greaves Foundation. Archive retrieval in progress. Caleb swore under his breath. They're watching us. Anna's heartbeat thundered. They still exist. The Foundation. They've been maintaining the system, keeping it running. The monitor flickered again, static erupting across the screen. Then the same distorted voice said, "Return all classified material immediately. You have something that belongs to us." Caleb yanked the cable from the wall. Sparks flew, plunging the office into blackness. "We're leaving, now." But as they turned to go, the main hall lights snapped on all at once. Blinding. Electric white. Somewhere above them, metal groaned. Doors slamming in sequence like gunshots. Anna grabbed Caleb's arm. "They're inside." The sound of footsteps followed. Heavy, deliberate boots striking wood. They ran through the corridors, the storm roaring outside, the building alive with movement. As they reached the foyer, a figure stepped from the shadows, the same masked intruder from the video, his gloved hands clutching a gun-shaped silhouette. "Give me the evidence," he said through a voice modulator. Anna's pulse raced, but she kept her voice steady. "You mean the truth?" The man's aim didn't waver. "You don't understand what you've uncovered. That research wasn't destroyed. It evolved. You'll undo decades of work." Caleb stepped forward, positioning himself between them. "Good. Then maybe it's time." The man's hand trembled. Lightning flashed through the windows. In that instant of light, Anna lunged toward the nearby breaker panel and flipped the main switch. The hall plunged into blackness. Gunfire cracked, deafening in the confined space. Caleb grunted and dropped to one knee, clutching his shoulder. Anna screamed his name, but he waved her toward the back door. "Go." She hesitated just long enough to grab Evelyn's journals and the box of letters from the table. Then she ran. Outside, the rain hit like needles. She sprinted toward the car parked by the old gate, the storm swallowing the world behind her. Lightning illuminated the hollow home, its windows alive with flickering light, as if the building itself were burning from within. She slammed into the driver's seat, soaked and shaking. Her laptop sat on the passenger side. She connected the external drive, hands trembling, and began uploading every document, video, and recording to multiple cloud servers. Each file blinked, uploading, as the storm raged around her. When the progress bar reached 100%, she whispered, "You can't bury this again." A shape appeared in the rearview mirror, the masked man standing on the porch, watching. He didn't move, didn't chase, just stared, the faint green glow of a device in his hand, flickering like a dying pulse. Anna drove off into the rain, her headlights slicing through the dark road that wound down from the hills. Beside her, Caleb bled quietly, his voice hoarse but determined. "Tell the world," he murmured. "End it." She gripped the wheel tighter. "I will." Behind them, lightning struck the hollow home. For a second, the manor's silhouette burned bright against the storm, then vanished, swallowed by shadow. Whatever the Greaves Foundation had been hiding was finally exposed, and Anna Mercer was no longer running from her family's sins. She was hunting them. Morning broke over the hollow home like a reluctant confession. The storm had passed, leaving a pale mist that glowed faintly in the first light. The house stood silent and hollow, its boards glistening with rain. Anna watched it from the ridge above the property, wrapped in Caleb's old flannel jacket. He was alive, pale, bandaged, exhausted, sitting in the passenger seat of her car while the paramedics waited down the road. His wound wasn't fatal, but his voice was weak. "You sure you want to go back in there?" Anna nodded. "I have to finish this." Caleb managed a faint smile. "Then do it right." Inside, the hollow home was quieter than she had ever heard it. No hum in the walls, no whisper of movement, only the hush of aftermath. Her footsteps echoed through the parlor as she set up the camera, the same one she had carried from room to room since she'd arrived. She unfolded the tripod, adjusted the lens, and pressed record. Her face filled the frame, pale, hollow-eyed, resolute. "This is Anna Mercer," she began. "Today is October 17th, 2025. What you're about to see will explain everything my family and the government have hidden for nearly a century. The truth about the hollow home." Her voice didn't shake. She'd rehearsed this 1,000 times in her head. The camera's red light blinked steadily, an unblinking witness. She reached for the stack of documents, the letters from Greaves, Evelyn's journals, Lydia's final notes. In 1934, this house was used for a government-funded experiment called the Behavioral Rehabilitation Initiative. The goal was to reshape human behavior using sensory conditioning, primarily on children labeled unfit for society. My grandmother, Dr. Evelyn Mercer, directed the project. She believed she was helping them. She was wrong. Lightning flickered faintly outside, though the storm was gone. The house creaked, as though listening. Anna continued, "The children's voices you've heard in recordings, they aren't ghosts. They were part of a psychological experiment that went too far. When the government tried to erase the evidence, Evelyn buried it, but she couldn't erase her guilt. She spent the rest of her life caring for the only survivor, her sister, Lydia Mercer, whose mind fractured under the conditioning. Lydia became the echo that haunted this house." Her eyes lifted to the camera, steady, unflinching. The tapes, the whispers, the sounds in the walls, they were Lydia's mimicry. A child trapped in endless repetition. And somehow the system that powered those recordings is still active, maintained by the descendants of the man who started it, Robert Greaves. She turned the camera to face the desk. On it, the old reel player sat silent beside the modern terminal. The monitor now displayed a single word, "Archive complete." Anna exhaled slowly. "I'm releasing everything, every document, every confession. The files are already online. If you're seeing this, then the hollow home is no longer a secret." She paused, glancing toward the window where dawn had begun to spill through the boards. Her voice softened. "My grandmother once wrote that truth is an inheritance too heavy for one person to carry." Maybe she was right, but silence is heavier. She stopped recording. The camera's red light faded to black. For a moment, Anna stood in the stillness, letting the weight of it all settle. Then she heard it, faint but unmistakable. Children's laughter, not the mocking echo she'd heard before, not the desperate sound of trapped voices, but something lighter, distant, almost peaceful. She turned toward the hallway. The sound drifted down the stairs, soft as wind through leaves. For the first time, it didn't chill her. It comforted her. Caleb appeared in the doorway, pale but upright. "You hear that?" he asked. Anna nodded. "They're leaving." Together they stepped onto the porch. The mist had thinned, revealing the rolling fields beyond, golden under the morning light. Behind them, the hollow home stood quiet, its windows open for the first time in decades. Caleb leaned on the railing. "What now?" Anna looked out toward the horizon. "We tell their story. That's what history is, remembering the people who weren't allowed to speak." She turned back toward the house one last time. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw a small figure in the upstairs window, a girl with pale hair, smiling faintly before fading into the light. Anna whispered, "Goodbye, Lydia." Later that afternoon, she uploaded her final video to the documentary archive. Its title was simple, "For Those Who Remember." The first comment appeared within minutes. "We hear them too." By nightfall, the story had spread. News outlets, online forums, university boards, the Mercer legacy was no longer buried beneath dust and denial. And in the quiet hills of Vermont, the hollow home stood empty at last. The walls no longer hummed, the air no longer whispered, only the wind moved through its halls, carrying faint traces of laughter. Not haunting, but free. Anna's voiceover, recorded at the end of her documentary, echoed as the closing frame faded to black. We inherit more than names, we inherit choices. Some build legacies, others build graves, but what we choose to do with that inheritance, that's what defines us. And then silence, real, final, and clean. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.